Welcome to Youtube Pedia. The genius behind the glasses, Woody Allen's life and rise to fame. When you think of witty dialogue, neurotic characters, jazz-filled soundtracks, and intellectual comedy, one name echoes through the halls of cinematic history: Woody Allen. With his thick glasses, fast-paced speech, and quirky humor, Allen crafted a style all his own, part philosopher, part comedian, part storyteller. But behind the camera and the comic timing lies a man whose journey through life is as fascinating and layered as his films. Let's dive deep into the early life and rise of this complex cinematic genius. Discover the greatest stories from history, science, and beyond. If you're curious about the world, subscribe now and join our journey through knowledge. Humble beginnings in Brooklyn. Born Alan Stewart Konigsberg on December 1, 1935, in Brooklyn, New York, Woody Allen grew up in a modest Jewish household. His parents, Nettie and Martin Konigsberg, were working-class people. His father was a jewelry engraver and waiter, while his mother worked as a bookkeeper. From a young age, Allen exhibited a strong sense of independence and a biting sense of humor. He wasn't a fan of school and often described it as a prison, preferring books, magic tricks, and comedy records over textbooks and teachers. By the age of 15, young Allen was already submitting jokes to newspaper columns and earning money for his punchlines. He legally changed his name to Woody Allen as he began forging his own identity, a blend of admiration for his musical idols and a desire to stand out. Early career, writing, and stand-up stardom. Woody Allen's first steps into show business came through comedy writing. He worked as a gag writer for famous TV shows in the 1950s, including The Ed Sullivan Show and The Tonight Show. At just 19, he was making more money than most adults in his neighborhood, crafting jokes that made America laugh. But writing wasn't enough. Allen wanted to perform, to share his unique voice directly with the audience. In the early 1960s, he took to the stage as a stand-up comedian. His style was different, intellectual, neurotic, awkward, but charming. He didn't rely on punchlines alone. He told stories filled with irony, insecurity, and self-deprecating wit. He talked about relationships, fear of death, and the absurdity of life. Audiences found it refreshing. He wasn't trying to be someone else. He was simply being himself. His performances in clubs like the Blue Angel and the Bitter End gained popularity, and soon he was a regular guest on major talk shows. By the mid-1960s, Woody Allen was a known name, not just a writer, but a performer, a thinker, a rising star. A bold step into cinema. Woody's move from stage to screen began with screenwriting. He wrote the screenplay for What's New Pussycat, 1965, but after creative differences with the director, he realized he wanted more control over his stories. That's when he decided, if he was going to tell stories, he would direct them himself. In 1966, he directed his first film, What's Up, Tiger Lily, a quirky comedy that redubbed a Japanese spy movie into a ridiculous new plot. It was experimental, weird, and a hint of what was to come. Soon after, he began making original comedies like Take the Money and Run 1969, Bananas 1971, and Sleeper 1973, all starring himself. These films were filled with slapstick, satire, and surrealism. He blended humor with social commentary, often mocking politics, philosophy, and the human condition. Critics took notice. Audiences laughed. Woody Allen was not just a comedian anymore, he was a filmmaker with vision. Annie Hall, a turning point in film history. Then came the movie that changed everything, Annie Hall 1977. It wasn't just funny. It was deep, romantic, intellectual, and heartbreakingly real. Allen played Alvy Singer, a neurotic comedian falling in and out of love with the charming, eccentric Annie Hall, played by Diane Keaton, Allen's real-life partner at the time. The film broke all the rules, jumping through time, breaking the fourth wall, using animation and mixing fantasy with reality. It wasn't just about love. It was about memory, identity, and the way we tell stories about our lives. Annie Hall won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Actress for Diane Keaton. Woody Allen had officially gone from comedy writer to Hollywood legend. The film also influenced an entire generation of filmmakers and became a blueprint for the modern romantic comedy. Without Annie Hall, we might not have had When Harry Met Sally, 500 Days of Summer, or even certain episodes of Friends. The Woody Allen style, smart, neurotic, and timeless. After Annie Hall, Allen didn't rest. He continued pushing boundaries with films like Manhattan 1979, Stardust Memories 1980, and Zelig 1983. His movies often explored themes of love, death, art, morality, and the fear of the unknown. He referenced philosophy, literature, and psychology, weaving them into his scripts in ways that were both funny and profound. He created a new type of leading man, awkward, anxious, introspective, and a new kind of storytelling, one where the laughs made you think and the thoughts made you laugh. A love affair with New York. Woody Allen's name is almost inseparable from New York City. His films are love letters to the city's energy, culture, and complexity. He captured the jazz-filled nights, the rainy streets, the cramped apartments, and the electric conversations of Manhattan like no one else. For many, Woody Allen didn't just make movies. He created a feeling, a mood, a world. Controversies, comebacks, and the complex legacy of Woody Allen. Woody Allen's journey through cinema is not just the story of a gifted filmmaker, but also that of a man whose personal life has sparked intense debate and divided public opinion. From celebrated masterpieces to career-threatening scandals, from triumphant comebacks to critical re-evaluation, Woody Allen's legacy is as complex as the characters he brought to life on screen. In this part, we explore the darker, deeper, and more controversial dimensions of his story, without forgetting the mark he has left on the world of cinema. A master of reinvention, Allen's cinematic golden age. Following the massive success of Annie Hall in Manhattan, Woody Allen entered what many consider his golden age, a period in the 1980s and early 1990s where he produced some of his most critically acclaimed work. Films like The Purple Rose of Cairo, 1985, Hannah and Her Sisters, 1986, and Crimes and Misdemeanors, 1989, showed that Allen could masterfully blend comedy with tragedy, hope with despair. He played less of the leading man and instead turned his attention to ensemble casts and more mature themes. His characters were still neurotic, philosophical, and often morally conflicted, but the emotional depth increased. These weren't just comedies anymore. They were explorations of human vulnerability, ethical dilemmas, and the pain of existence. In The Purple Rose of Cairo, he told the story of a woman who falls in love with a movie character who steps off the screen into real life, blending fantasy and reality in a way that only Allen could. Hannah and Her Sisters offered a deeply human look at family, love, and redemption, while Crimes and Misdemeanors asked a chilling question: can people live happily after doing terrible things? Critics praised Allen's evolving style. He was no longer just the funny, neurotic guy, he was now a philosopher of cinema. The scandal that shook the world. But as Allen's artistic reputation grew, his personal life spiraled into chaos. In 1992, a shocking and controversial event changed the way the world looked at him forever. Allen had been in a long-term relationship with actress Mia Farrow, with whom he had made over a dozen films and shared a blended family that included biological and adopted children. Then came a revelation that stunned the public. Allen was in a relationship with Soon-Yi Pravin, Mia Farrow's adopted daughter, who was 35 years younger than him. Though she was not Allen's daughter or adopted by him, the optics of the relationship were disturbing to many. Shortly after, Mia Farrow accused Allen of sexually abusing their 7-year-old adopted daughter Dylan Farrow, allegations which Allen has always denied. 2 separate investigations were conducted at the time, one by the New York Child Welfare Office and another by Yale New Haven Hospital, and neither resulted in criminal charges. However, the public was deeply divided. Some believed Allen's version of the story, others believed Farrow and Dillon. This scandal cast a long shadow over Allen's career. Though he continued to make films, many actors distanced themselves from him. His relationship with the press soured. And over time, the controversy was revived again and again, especially in the era of Me Too. In recent years, Dillon Farrow has publicly reiterated her accusations, while Allen and his supporters maintain his innocence, claiming the allegations are part of a long campaign by Farrow. The truth remains clouded, debated, and emotionally charged, with no universally accepted resolution. Creating through controversy. Despite the storm around him, Woody Allen never stopped working. Some questioned how he managed to continue, but Allen remained defiant, insisting that his personal life should be kept separate from his work. In the 2000s, he found unexpected success outside the US, especially in Europe. Films like Match Point 2005, Vicky Cristina Barcelona 2008, and Midnight in Paris 2011 became critical and box office hits. In fact, Midnight in Paris, a nostalgic and romantic story about a writer traveling back in time to meet his literary heroes, became his highest-grossing film ever. European audiences embraced him, and actors like Penélope Cruz, Javier Bardem, Scarlett Johansson, and Owen Wilson were willing to collaborate. Allen won another Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Midnight in Paris, showing that even in the midst of controversy, his creative spark hadn't dimmed. Memoirs, documentaries, and legacy debates. In 2020, Allen released his autobiography, Apropos of Nothing, a candid and sometimes defiant account of his life, work, and the controversies that surround him. Critics were divided, some called it self-serving, others found it honest and reflective. The same year, HBO released the documentary Allen v. Farrow, which presented the Farrow family's perspective in the sexual abuse allegations. The series reignited the debate and led to renewed calls for boycotts of Allen's work. Some streaming services removed his films, and book publishers pulled out of deals. The divide between the art and the artist has rarely been so intense. Supporters argue that Allen's decades of contribution to cinema should not be erased without solid proof of wrongdoing. Critics say that to celebrate his films is to ignore the voices of victims. The debate is ongoing, emotional, and deeply personal for many. The artistic legacy, genius, or flawed icon. Regardless of personal opinions, Woody Allen's influence on cinema is undeniable. He made over 50 films, wrote dozens of plays, books, and essays, and inspired filmmakers from Noah Baumbach to Wes Anderson. His signature style, introspective monologues, awkward romances, jazz scores, and New York skylines, has become a part of film history. He pioneered the idea of the thinking man's comedy, films that made you laugh but also made you question life, love, God, and death. He challenged the norms of storytelling, experimented with structure and perspective, and never shied away from showing the absurdity of being human. And yet, his story is a cautionary tale about fame, power, and the complexity of legacy in the modern world. Woody Allen is a man whose name can no longer be mentioned without stirring strong reactions: adoration, anger, admiration, or discomfort. Final thoughts: the man behind the curtains. Woody Allen is not just a director or a comedian. He is a reflection of an era, of shifting cultural values, and of the eternal struggle between brilliance and moral responsibility. Some see him as a misunderstood genius. Others, as a man whose personal life taints his artistic achievements. But one thing is certain: Woody Allen's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about art, truth, and forgiveness. Can we separate a creator from their creation? Should we? And what do we lose or gain when we choose to erase or embrace a controversial figure? In the end, Woody Allen's life is like one of his own films, full of contradictions, unresolved questions, sharp dialogue, and unforgettable characters. Whether you love him or loathe him, ignore him or study him, you cannot deny his impact on the world of storytelling. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the life and legacy of Woody Allen. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Youtube Pedia for more fascinating journeys through the lives of history's most intriguing and controversial figures. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and we'll see you in the next video.